Welcome to Monkey Chatter. Before we get started, we have to say that while we think we are really smart, we definitely are not doctors, and you should not be taking our advice as medical advice. Everything we say on this show is based on personal experiences, and any guests we have on are not on to help diagnose or treat or cure any disease. Please reach out to your doctor if you have specific medical questions. And now that we're done with kind of the legalese of the show, we want to get on with the fun stuff. So carry on. Let's get down to Monkey Chatter. Welcome to Monkey Chatter. This is Lara, and I'm here with Amy and Michelle. And today's topic is a really big one. It's actually about sleep and how much sleep we all get and all need or all want. And we're actually have decided to break this into two parts. So we're going to start today because we kind of teased this topic a couple of podcasts ago. We talked about a morning routine, and then I think there was a book that Amy was reading called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, who's a neuroscientist. And so we decided we'd all start to read it. So we have all started reading the book. And let me tell you, it is super fascinating and it's a great book. But since we didn't finish the book yet, we kind of wanted to add part two because once we finish the book, we feel like there's going to be so much more to discuss. So yeah, we thought we'd kind of start out with just a little overview of like how we all think we do with sleep. But just to preface that, even the book itself has really talks about some groundbreaking studies that show that adults need between 7 and 8 hours or 7 and 9 hours of sleep per night. And that is probably a lot more than most people are getting regularly. I see Amy
for
laughing.
sure.
Yeah. I think it's rare that people are getting 7 to 9 hours. And I know a lot of people that it's almost like a badge of honor to say like, oh, you can sleep when you're dead. And, I get by on 5 or 6 hours a night or whatever. But, this book is starting to show that that is not a good plan for your life and your health overall. So I'll throw out there that for me, I always have struggled over time off and on with sleep. But right now, I feel like I'm getting really good sleep. And I also feel like a lot of it is because I've changed my routine and I have more control over my schedule. So because I own a business and I work for myself, and I do have set hours, but I purposely set my hours to be a little bit later open time. And then in the end, it's proven to actually work well for the business. So I have a later start in the mornings than probably most people who go into an office or go do a regular job. And that really does allow me, and I think I am more of a night owl personality. I wouldn't say I'm like a super late night owl, but I am not a morning person. um, and when I was struggling to be a morning person, I really had some probably sleep issues. I think I felt like I wasn't getting enough sleep. So that being said, that's kind of where I am now, but it's been over time, it has been a struggle. And now it's amazing because I literally don't use an alarm. I rarely, if ever, set an alarm. And when I do, it's usually because I have to go like to the airport really early or I have an early meeting to get to. But 9 times out of 10, I wake up right before the alarm goes off. Anyway, so my internal clock seems to be really good. It seems to be better. I tend to wake up at the same time every day without trying. It's really kind of fascinating. So I'm going to throw it over to Amy, I think, because I know Amy's on the complete opposite end of that spectrum.
Yeah, we were actually talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and I said I feel like, for an average person, my like fitness and nutrition and all of that stuff is okay, but my sleep is not. And yeah, I don't even know where to begin. I have to tell you,
Well,
this book
you
scares
get
the
up.
bejesus out of me.
Yeah, the book talks about it, and you get super early because you want to. So this is what stood out for me is Amy is super athletic and she gets up super early in the morning to work out and run and take care of her body and her health and wellness. But I my question would be like, by getting up that early and not getting the amount of sleep maybe you need every night, does that negate some of the effects of the exercise?
Yeah, I'm sure it does, and again, I'm about 7/8 of the way through the book, I guess, and, there is a big section on it, and I think when we actually talk about the book and talk about some of the stuff that we each found fascinating in there, that is one of the things, like, of the, just talking about athletic decline. I don't wanna say decline, but, like, what an effect it has on your athletic performance. I could be an Olympian if I slept, maybe. No.
I know, I was just thinking that after even some of the book and listening to interviews with the author, it's like people who think like, "Hey, I'm doing great on my 4 to 6 hour sleep." Imagine what they could do with 8 hours of
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah, it is, and I don't know, I've tried a
It's
variety of
complicated
things.
though
Yeah,
because you do have to if you really wanna do your exercise, you have to find the time to do it.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and
So
I'm
what time do
definitely
you go to
like
bed?
so I tried to go to bed so in the winter time, it's definitely a little easier for me to go to bed earlier, um, so I generally try to be up in bed by 9, um, and then get up at 4, so that's, like, 7 hours in bed, but yeah. 7 hours, Lara. I see Lara's counting on her fingers.
I'm not a math person. I was like, "How many hours
Um,
is that?" So
But you're not
7 that
asleep.
yeah, I'm not asleep, like, I
yeah, so
probably
that's like your minimum that
uh,
they recommend, but you're probably barely
yeah,
getting the
like, most of
minimum.
the time so, like, my watch tracks my sleep, and I know it's probably not 100% accurate, just like all of those gadgets and stuff, but, like, I'm generally somewhere between 5 to 6.5 hours, of sleep, so which to some people is like, "Whoa, that's normal, what's the problem?" But, yeah, once you really start digging into it and I've been digging into the sleep thing for quite a few years now, yeah, it's kind of a problem.
And
So,
you probably sleep really hard when you're out, once you're out,
I don't.
I'm guessing. Really?
No, that's
Because I would
another
think with all
problem.
that physical activity, you'd just be knocked out.
Mm-mm. I wish. Like, it's very rare. I almost never sleep all night through. Like, I can't
Mm.
tell you the last time that I just, like, went to sleep and stayed asleep the whole night. So, yeah, it's a
It's a
it's
struggle for so many people.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah. What about you, Michelle?
Well, hmm. So, for like my most of my life, I was a great sleeper. Like I could fall. I think about my 20s when I was working like 3 jobs in the summer, and I literally would fall asleep. I could fall asleep on concrete stairs. I did that one day, and like I
With or
truly
without alcohol?
without. Like this is without alcohol.
'Cause
This
I've
was
known some people to fall asleep on concrete stairs, but usually there's alcohol.
I remember too, like, and then you wake up and you don't know if it's 3 a.m. or 3 p.m., and if you're early or late, you're just like, "Oh my god," you just know, "Ah." Um, but I was such a good sleeper, like, most of my life, and I loved it, like, I love sleep, like, truly, it was one of my favorite things, and I could fall asleep super easy, and, um and then, wake up without an alarm with no problem. Um, so so and then menopause, and
Yeah.
when I hit menopause, that, like, wrecked my sleep, and not I couldn't stay asleep, I couldn't fall asleep. If I fell asleep, I was waking up and either, having to pee, or I'd wake up with, hot flashes, and then your mind starts going and it's the big anxiety loop, like, "Oh my god, well, I'm not sleeping." Like,
Yeah, and I
it
have been there.
right?
That is
Ugh,
real. The menopause thing, not so much the hot flashes, I was lucky
ugh,
and didn't experience those,
mm,
but the waking up and then the anxiety loop.
yeah,
That is
brutal,
brutal, and
brutal.
it's really hard to get back to sleep
Yep, and
once
then
you
you're
get
up,
to that
right? And
point.
then once you're up, right? And so, that really, was problematic for me for years. Like, I wasn't one of those lucky folks who sorta was in and out of menopause, like, it went on for years, and definitely impacted my, they talk about brain fog, right? And, impacted my ability to, like, think and function, and there was a period of time where I was like, "Oh my god, could if this is gonna be the way it's gonna be, I would seriously like to tap out because I can't live like this." And, traditional modern medicine truly sucks at at helping women through that. Like,
That's
they're
so
just like, "Oh,
true.
yeah," you go to your doctor and they're like, "Oh, well, that's just the way it is, it's just menopause, you'll be fine."
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, get over it," basically.
Yeah, it truly no help, and so, by the time I, made it through that, my sleep has never really, gone back to sort of that pre portion where and I think like you, Lara, uh I tend to be more of a night owl, like, I like to go to bed later and get up later, which was great when I was managing nightclubs and, I was on that was, like, the perfect schedule for
Oh, yeah,
me.
and that's like a real night owl, like
Yeah, it was
true.
awesome, so it just sort of the accumulation of everything, like menopause, having to be on, like, a normal human schedule. My husband gets up super early. He's, really early, so that wakes me up. Um, and reading this, starting to read this book, I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And then health-wise, I recently started working with, a functional medicine doctor trying to sort out some things, and one of the first things we started to work on is she's like, "If we can't get your sleep sorted out, nothing else really matters." Like,
Wow.
this is the basis because, it impacts your cortisol, your insulin, all of those things, so a lot of our
Do you think she's
chronic
read this
concerns.
book?
I don't know, I'll have to ask her. So I work with 2 different docs, and one actually recommended a not this book, but another book about, circadian rhythms. So, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so that it sounds like she's got it in that she understands that it's really important on the level of
yeah,
overall health, and it
yeah,
affects everything else. And
truly,
the
and,
book
like
talks about that,
yeah,
cortisol and all these other stress hormones and
yeah, and I just have really had no I knew it was impacting me, because the brain fog piece was the most disturbing part, right? When you're used to being a high performer and able to juggle lots of things, and then all of a sudden you can't really function.
yeah.
Um, so I've gotten, I'm a much more serious about my sleep now. Like, I go to bed at a regular time and, try not to drink anything. So I'm not getting up peeing every, 2 hours.
That's my downfall, is
Yeah.
I love having, like, a cup of herbal tea in the evenings, and it's
Mm.
almost like a little ritual, but it is, like, not the greatest idea to do that right before you go to bed,
Right?
because pretty much you're not gonna make it through the night, and I drink a lot of water through the day anyways.
Yep.
That has been a little bit my downfall, but I miss it.
Yeah.
But also alcohol, they're saying, like, how, like, I used to think, "Oh, a glass of red wine with dinner, and
I
that's just"
know.
now there's, like, saying, "No, it's like, don't even put that poison in your body at all." It's like, "Oh, we we can't win."
Well, and it
That
actually interrupts your sleep, right? So
Right,
alcohol is a well, in the book, right, they're talking about that, how it's truly a sedative, but that's not really what you want before you
right.
go to
That's what's so
sleep.
yeah.
fascinating, which we'll definitely have to talk more about,
Yeah,
like, on part
yeah,
2, but stuff that I didn't know about, which was, like, sedatives are it's like it's giving you false sleep. It's not
mhm,
giving you the sleep you actually need to regenerate.
right. Yeah,
And that's something I didn't really think about. I mean, I never medicated like sleeping pills.
right, me
I'm
either.
real sensitive to stuff like that. I think the closest I ever came is a half a Benadryl. That knocks me right out. But it is like this mindless like sleep where you're in this void and you feel weird when you wake up. It doesn't feel like you had a good night's sleep exactly, which
Yeah.
is kind of how alcohol makes you feel. Although too much alcohol, you don't really sleep at all. You know how you wake up and you have
Mm.
weird dreams and,
I don't know
you
what you
know.
mean.
Neuro
What are you talking about?
Have you ever drank a lot to the point where you were kind of a little tipsy drunk before you went to bed and then you go to bed and you don't sleep great.
See,
You
it's
sleep
so
bad.
funny. I used to like, and I don't drink very much at all anymore.
Me neither.
But like that used to be the only time I felt like I actually got
Slept.
a good, yeah, because
Oh, that is
I
wild.
actually fell asleep, and that's what everything you read is like, no, that's not right. It's the opposite, all that. But I'm like, no, I could actually get like I actually felt rested the next morning if I was, had a couple of drinks. I think it just like because for me, it's like my brain is like, "Woo, woo, woo," like, it is just spinning, so when I wake up, then it's like, "Oh, crap, I should do this, or I need to do that, I need to do that." So, I did start keeping, um, like, little index cards in my nightstand, and so if I wake up, I will try to jot something down, which is always interesting to not turn the light on and,
Uh-huh.
like, 'cause I don't wanna wake my husband up. But if I think of something, I'll, like, try to write it down in the middle of the night so that you can, like, then kinda brain dump it and hopefully go back to sleep, but, um
I get that too though, because sometimes this sounds weird, but like I have problem solved in my sleep.
mm,
I
Yeah.
have gone to bed with worry or anxiety about a specific situation. And then there are times where after I finally like went to sleep, somehow I would wake up and be like, I know what to do. And I would know what to do. And it would be a comfort. Of course, in that meantime, it was like a very fitful sleep and I had a lot of time getting there. So that's kind of strange. It's really fascinating that your brain probably already knew the answer, but you were stressing about it and like letting your mind run wild, but your brain's like, "No, just, just chill. We're going to come up with this."
Well,
And
that
then you
is
do.
true, right? Like, isn't and I don't know where I read this, and maybe it's in this book somewhere, but, you can get really good at that where you give your mind the question before you fall asleep and
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'd like you to, work on this, um,
Yeah, like a
while we're
problem.
sleeping." Yeah, so you can actually
It's like giving your brain homework.
yes. Yeah, and so as you get better at that
Well, and I know I probably talk about this too much, but I feel like meditation has also been a lifesaver for me because that I attribute meditation as or I attribute that to also why I'm sleeping better
mm,
because I do have more of a regular meditation practice. If I'm a little more wound up, I will play, a guided meditation and I'll listen to a guided meditation and I can also meditate myself to sleep now.
mm,
Like doing like a body scan and breath,
mm.
body kind of
I
connection.
have a question for you, Lara. So, if you so so does that mean, like, do you have your phone next to your bed,
Oh, yeah. So that's a big deal, right? Because now you're not
right?
supposed to have your phone.
I know, and I
So,
do the same thing, like, when I, wake up, I'll, like, put in an insight timer meditation and pop those in, And I have to use earbuds because Bill, my husband,
Oh,
hates
yeah.
hates that stuff. He doesn't wanna hear it. So then, they say not to have your earbuds, not to fall asleep with those in. So,
They do
yeah.
say that. So I actually do keep my phone on a nightstand, but I put it as far away from the bed as I can.
Mm,
Um, and I I turn it face down so it doesn't
yeah.
light up. And then I put it on, silent and the meditation will still play. And when my partner is with me, he doesn't mind and he can pretty much fall
Uh,
asleep pretty easily. So that is a big difference. I've seen these things and I'm curious about them, and they're probably going to prove to be just as bad as earbuds. But it's like a headband that
mm,
you can sleep in and you can hear, but it's not in your ear. I think they're called like sleep headbands or sleep bands, or
okay.
and what they're for meditation at night. That's what they're specifically for,
I will
or for
check that
people who
out,
want to
Laura.
listen to music at night.
Yeah.
And music is another one that I found there's some meditation music that's the certain specific like tune like megahertz or um frequencies.
Yeah.
Those will sometimes also help me to relax and to kind of just like kind of let go of things. And that's a big part of why the meditation works for me, I think, is because I am refocusing my attention
Right.
away from the thoughts, and without trying to change them or ignore them. It's more like I'm allowing them to be there and they're still there, but I'm bringing my attention back to something other than those
Something
thoughts.
else. Yeah.
And then eventually I get sleepy.
I think, um, and maybe it was the there was an interview with it's Matthew Walker, right? Wrote the book.
Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
author.
So maybe it was the interview, and I think it was on the Rich Roll podcast, and he said something about, the distraction, right? Like, same sort of thing, like, so you're having looping, the anxiety, whatever, and then, like you said, instead of trying like, stop thinking about that, which never works,
Right.
which never works, to sort of move the attention and the focus to something else. So I had a period of time, where I used the, thunderstorm, like,
Mm,
the rain and the thunder, like, that really helped me
I
fall
like
back to
those.
sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, rain and sometimes ocean
Yeah.
waves, those kinds of things. A lot of times that helps me. So I also have like one of those smart speakers in my hallway,
Mm,
and because again, you don't necessarily want to get on your phone if you wake up in the middle of the night, but
right.
I can tell it to, and if I do it now, it'll do it. So I can't say its name, but hey, you. But if I say, play ocean sounds for 1 hour, it will
Mm,
play them and then tail off in an hour. And I didn't even know that until like a year ago. I'm like, this is amazing because it's not a
that's a
device
great
next to my
idea.
bed. It's kind
Yep.
of ambient because it's in the background and it shuts itself off. Because I
Yeah.
have found if I could fall asleep to music that's not doesn't have an end, I
Mm,
wake up because I hear it
mm,
later because I'm kind of a light sleeper.
yeah. Amy, have you tried any of that kinda stuff?
Um, so I will sometimes like listen to podcasts. They tend to like help me go to sleep at night. So like so my thing is I tend to like go to sleep okay. It's like when I wake up in the middle of the night. I used to like call it my witching hour, like between 2 and 3 o'clock usually.
Yep, and that's
Um,
common, that 2 to
Hmm.
3 o'clock, yeah.
yeah. Um, So, and then of course Lara has sent me like meditation stuff
Mm.
that I have attempted on occasion. So, but again, it typically is like my issue is typically not actually going to sleep. Like I can generally fall asleep and be okay. It's when I
Mhm.
wake up in the middle of the night then and then I'm,
Hmm.
and to make matters worse and know that I am doing this to myself. We allow our dogs to sleep with us. which is a whole other animal, no pun
Yeah,
intended.
that's fair. I mean, I used to the dog I have now is she can't get on the bed by herself, and I've never just encouraged her just because we got her as an older dog, but I've had dogs that slept with me,
Mhm.
and it does not always allow for the most quiet night's sleep.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's so funny, so my running coach that I work with, they have 2 dogs too, and so sometimes we'll have conversations about sleeping with and how it all works, because 'cause I'll ask her, I'm like, "How did you get that much sleep? Like, you have 2 dogs in your bed too."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cats aren't you can't rule them out either because they do evil
No,
things.
let me tell
Like,
They
you,
do
they're
evil
almost
stuff.
cats,
worse.
oh, they were when we had the 2 cat oh my god, when we had the 2 cats, and they've since passed away, and I do miss them, and they were awesome, but we had this one this female we had a female and a male, and the male used to literally sleep under the covers long next to me with his head on the pillow, right? He was
Oh.
pretty he would until he went crazy, he was pretty good, but the female would sleep in a little ball in between, my husband's legs, like, like, she's like a bowling ball, like, you wouldn't think that I think she was smaller than the male, so what'd she weigh, 8, 10 pounds, something like that? She wasn't that big, but she was an immovable object, so, like, if we wanted to turn over anything, it was impossible, and she no wonder I had such a hard time during those years, like, it was just yeah, so the
I've seen
animals are
videos of
hard.
people's animals at night, like
Oh,
funny videos where the cat jumps on the bed and, like, is staring at the person and then is, like, touching their face. You know, like, "Are you gonna wake up?"
wake
You
up.
get Yes. I mean, they do stuff like that, but that being said, I mean, we're all animal lovers. Uh, Me personally, maybe if it was the only reason I couldn't sleep, it might be a thought, but I'm not giving that up.
Yeah.
I like the cat sleeping with me. I always like the dog sleeping with me, but I'm with you, Michelle. Like I usually have to get up to go pee.
Right? Like,
That's usually why I have to get
so
up.
annoying.
And if there's a noise, I'm pretty sensitive to I I live in a neighborhood, but it is really quiet where I live. We have a lot of big trees. The yards are like spaced out a little bit more and it's just quiet here. We don't
Mm,
have any busy roads really close. So if there is something, if there's a car, revving its engine three
mm,
streets over or,
hear it.
yes, and that will wake me up and I usually startle awake when it's something kind of weird like that and I
Mm,
don't that's
yeah,
an awful feeling.
it is an awful once so talk about TMI, right? Um, the thing so this is when you go, "Okay, clearly there's something wrong with me." But one of the challenges I've always had, and I think maybe I inherited this from my mother, she was a little bit this way, but once I wake up so, I get up to pee or whatever, I go back to bed, and this house that we live in is so noisy. Like, it is so noisy, and the furnace, like, I can hear it kick on, go through its whole cycle, kick off, and then the fan so, if that happens while I will lay there and be like, "Alright, is everything okay with the furnace? Is it going through its cycle alright? I don't know, it's running for a really long time. Oh, is it gonna turn on?" And then when it's off, I'm like, "Oh, is it gonna turn back on? I hope it turns back." I mean, it is just that is my mind attaches to a sound, or if I hear something up above, like, scratching, I'm like, "Oh goodness, is there another squirrel in the house?" Like, oh my god. And so you're, like, hyper vigilant, just listening, 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 so
Well,
that
this
definitely once I'm up and once I hear a noise, it's all over, like, I might as well just get up and yeah, and sometimes I do, I'll just get up and go down, be like, "Okay, everything looks okay in the basement," and then my husband will be like, "What are you
What are
doing?
you doing?
Go to bed." What are you gonna do about it at 3 AM anyway, right? Like Yeah.
Okay, do either of your partners snore?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's a
some.
big deal for a lot of people.
Mm.
Yeah. I
I mean, I
saw,
know a lot of people that don't sleep in the same room because their spouse is a
well,
snorer.
it's funny, a snorer. Um,
Snorers.
it's funny that you say that. I can't remember if this was a different podcast with Matthew Walker, or if it was somebody else. I feel like it was him, but not the rich roll one. Talked about like getting a sleep divorce, like
Mm.
to prevent a real divorce
Yes.
because it's like a for people that, do have really bad snoring or whatever, my husband is not he's not terrible. He's not like rattling the walls or anything. Um, but he will sometimes snore. But yeah, like it's a real thing. Like he will talk about people getting a sleep divorce. So like, you sleep in separate rooms so that you
Yeah.
don't like get a real divorce because it's a
Well, because again, if
big
sleep is
thing.
so important to every aspect of your life, your
Yes.
brain function, your longevity, your health, your immunity, all these things, and you are not getting quality sleep because your person is snoring all night, then you got to do something about that.
Yeah.
That is another thing. Like I can fall asleep pretty easily, even if there's no like the falling asleep thing. I'm kind of like Amy in that way. Like I have no problem falling asleep usually. Um, but like I said, once I get up to pee, if there's noise and when I'm trying to go back to sleep, whether it's snoring or the furnace or the crazy animals on the roof or whatever it is, like my hearing's really good, which is, you know, not my husband's hearing is not so great, right? Like, he's not so I hear, like, every little thing, and, but yeah, the snoring for sure. Like, if he's snoring when I go to fall asleep, I could care less. You could knock down the house, like, it doesn't matter, like, when I'm going to sleep, I'm fine. It's the going back to sleep, like, and that's when I'll reach for my earbuds and, something to just sort of,
Yeah.
distract me.
I
Mm.
I have a partner and we don't live together, and so that's right now a good thing because we do struggle, you know, he says I snore. I think I do a little. He says it doesn't bother him, which I believe. I believe him because I'm usually the one laying there awake going, "I'm not snoring, you are."
Clearly, I'm awake.
Clearly, I am not
So
snoring, it is you. But I have noticed too that, like, he bought this little, like, mouth guard thing, and
Mm,
it works. It doesn't completely take it away, but it quiets it down, and he can sleep with it. So
mm.
I was like, "Oh, read that book, Breathe," by James Nestor, who was another book we need to discuss down the road because it talks about how you breathe at night, and if you're snoring, you're probably not breathing right at night. And he advocates this little mouth tape, like
Oh,
one little piece of
yeah.
Oh,
tape.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
tiny. Because so I mentioned it and he was like, "I'm not taping my mouth." I was like, "Okay, that sounds it's not like kidnapping."
It's
Not
That's
like
not
duct
what
super
tape.
gluing your mouth shut.
it's not kidnap taping. It's not duct tape. But anyways, so the mouth guard is as far as we've gotten so far. But I
Mm,
do notice like I get way better sleep if I'm on my own.
mm.
I just sleep much better on my own. So that's something to think about.
Yeah. God
Separate
love Tony.
bedrooms.
Yeah. But so Tony, like, I do love him. Some like on the nights when I have a long run the next day or if I have a race, he will actually he'll be like, "Do you want me to take the dogs and go to the basement?" So
Oh,
he
that's so
will he
sweet.
will take the dogs and lock them down in the basement and sleep down in the basement with
And
Oh,
them.
just
Um,
FYI, for anybody who's thinking, "Oh my goodness, Amy's basement is lovely." Like,
oh
it's
yeah,
not
I mean
like
it's a
she's setting
finished
them to a
basement.
that's
concrete
true.
And
cell or anything.
It's
It's,
it,
not like the yeah.
yeah, he's
There's
not a
not like
cellar dweller.
spiders and old
no,
dusty barrels.
no, no, it's very nice. So don't feel
Yeah.
too bad for Tony and the dogs going to the basement. That's a pretty nice place to be.
Yeah, I mean there's not a bed down here, but although one of our sofas does fold out into a bed, he could do that if he wanted to. But yeah, he and the dog sleep on the couch in the recliner chair and stuff. So like
That's cute.
that, and some of those nights I'm like, oh, praise Jesus, this is amazing.
See, I mean, honestly, I'm not sure how people slept together for millennia. Like our great-great-grandparents and my
Those little
grandparents
beds?
in a little
Yes.
bed. I still
Hmm.
have the bed that my grandparents had their whole entire married life, and it is tiny. And they
Yeah.
weren't tiny, they were average-sized people. But then I also think so and this is probably where I get the night owl stuff. My grandfather was a true night owl. He would stay up till probably 1 or 2 in the morning, and he wouldn't get up till 11 or 12 the next
Yeah, see,
day.
that would be my perfect
So
life.
maybe my grandma would go to bed early and get up early, so maybe they just weren't in the bed that much at the same time.
That must be it.
That's the key to their happy marriage.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
god.
those are, like, some glorious nights when he takes the
Sorry,
dog.
Tony. I hope you're not
Yeah.
listening.
I do love you. Yeah.
I
And the
know, and I feel the
dogs.
same way. I do. I just there are, like we taking a break in between is kind of essential. And dogs snore too. Like our dog snores, but she's
Yeah.
like a quiet snorer and it's very rhythmic. So it's almost like sleep noise.
Background noise.
It's not like you're like 1 minute it's quiet and the next it's you know. That's what wakes me up.
Our
It's the
dogs don't
snorting.
they don't really
Mm.
snore, like, I don't really notice them snoring usually, but they do the running in their sleep, and so then they're, like,
Oh, that's
kicking.
cute. That's noisy too.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh my
so, like, the
god.
whole bed
Uh,
is, like, moving.
So you guys, so I am, like, really consciously in the middle of trying to, um, make it better, right? Because it's become a serious, like, health now I've got medical professionals saying, "You need to figure this out," or, "This doesn't all end well." Like,
yeah, yeah. And
so
so you don't
yeah,
have sleep apnea though, right? That's for
I
sure
do
you don't.
not.
Okay, because
Nope.
that's the other big thing they say
Yeah.
causes this.
So, like, some of the things that they've suggested that I'm really trying to do is, have a set go to bed time and a set get up time, right? So that's sort of like sleep 101, right?
Mhm.
And then, try not to drink, at least 2 hours before I go to bed. And sometimes that helps and sometimes that doesn't, I don't know. Um, where I get stuck is, I have my phone next to my
Mm,
bed and I have it there because I like to well, first of all, we don't have a landline, right?
right.
So, if there is an emergency, it's your cell phone, right? I feel like and I'm like, "Okay, I don't know how people manage that." And then, wanting to have something if I do wake up and I do wanna listen to a meditation or something, that's sort of I do need to sort out a better option for that, I think. Um, yeah, and then trying to really consciously, get some exercise during the day,
Mhm.
like real exercise, not like, just and so those are things that have been sort of laid out as it's so hard when you have a medical professional being like, "Okay, you need to figure this out."
Yeah. Have they ever mentioned any like nutritional supplements, like natural things like magnesium? Because I've always heard good things about
Yeah.
that.
Yep,
Um,
so I've been taking magnesium for a
mm,
really long time, but,
mhm,
um, because there's different forms of like, so my original doctor, um put me on magnesium for that a long time ago, but now you work with somebody else and they're like, "Oh, that's not quite the right form,
ugh,
like, we don't
yeah,
want." And then I have been trying a couple of products, that were recommended, that support good sleep and also reducing that anxiety, throughout the day.
Mhm.
So I just started playing around with those probably a month ago.
I
Um,
had some good luck with those when I was going through. Um, a lot of them are, like ashwagandha based, which is
yep,
a cortisol managing type
yeah,
herb, stuff like that.
yeah, yeah,
Those
so
seem
I'll
to help.
report back when
Yeah, I'd love to know what
yeah,
how that
so
works.
anything else that,
How dark is your room? Is
it's
it
dark.
dark?
Yep,
No,
so
that's another
dark
thing
and
they
it's
say.
cold, right?
Oh,
So it's
yeah,
really
that's right.
cold in my house.
They talk about
So
temperature being
yep,
important.
I turn that down before I go to bed. Um, so the cold and the dark and the drinking, and I haven't, I don't drink really anymore, so there's no alcohol. Also the caffeine, getting rid of the caffeine, which
Yeah.
is tragic for me,
That
like
I was surprised at some of the stuff they talked about the caffeine. I don't drink much caffeine, but I am sensitive to it, so I'm careful.
yeah.
But, like, just briefly, and I don't remember all the exact numbers, but it's like the half-life of
The
that stuff
half-life,
is
yeah.
really
Right,
long, way
crazy,
longer than I expected.
and, so yeah, and the thing that I hadn't really been thinking about when I got off soda years ago, I mean, and I haven't had a soda in diet or otherwise in years. But I started drinking unsweetened iced tea, right?
Mm,
Like if I were out to lunch or something.
mhm.
And yeah, so
That's
just
bad.
being, if that's what you're drinking at lunch, right? There's caffeine in
Yeah,
unsweetened iced tea. Um, yeah, so that's been a journey too, like, we could do a whole conversation around alcohol, and I think we
caffeine.
are. I think we have that as a topic,
Yeah,
alcohol
I
and
think we
Yeah,
do.
we
like,
do. It'd
um,
be
So I
yeah,
just remembered you said at some point, I think, in a past,
past
conversation that
life.
you were in a past life, that you were, also, like, watching your blood sugar levels,
Yep,
and
yeah,
I remember a piece of maybe the podcast with Matthew Walker about sleep where he said people who don't get enough sleep leading up to a, like, glucose blood test
yep,
will test higher blood sugar, even
absolutely.
if they haven't done
Yep,
anything different in their diet, which is really
absolutely.
amazing.
It is,
So,
and
like,
since I
maybe
do
you could
test it
reduce
every
blood
morning.
sugar
Yeah, yeah, and that's one of the reasons, working with a functional medicine doc, I mean, that's one of the reasons is to figure out how to manage that, and she's like, "Well, if we could get your sleep and your anxiety under control, we can get that's gonna have a direct impact on."
on your
um
blood sugar.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
It's
it's
all
and
connected.
yeah, and, if you think of that over time, like, this has been decades, right? Like, this started for me in my 40s and probably
Mhm.
before, so, yeah, get ahead of this,
yeah,
people.
and I think,
Yeah.
and don't, like, quote any of this because, well, I think we'll have this together once we're actually through the book and stuff, but, I think he talks about a study or some studies where basically, like, sleep deprived people, like, they could take perfectly normal people and sleep deprive them. I don't know what all the details are of it or, like, how many hours that is or whatever, and, like, basically, they would be diagnosed as pre-diabetic,
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, that's what
after
I
that.
was talking
yeah,
Yeah.
about. The blood sugar
the
thing is like
true thing,
yep, it's
yeah. I'm
crazy.
here to tell you that is a
And
true thing, yeah,
it affects people's ability to regulate emotions.
yep,
That's a big one they talked about, and there's a bunch more stuff we'll probably delve into the
yeah.
next on part
Yeah.
2, but, and dreams, I know dreams are a big one. Do you guys dream? Are you guys big dreamers, or do you remember your dreams? I mean, we all dream, but it's a matter of do you remember them or are
So
they
that's
vivid?
another, really great question, and we should do a podcast on dreams for sure.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that would be really great. I used to be such a great dreamer, and about that time, like, once my sleep got hijacked, I stopped dreaming, and I remember being, like, really crushed because I used to have great dreams, and I would, like, write them down. I had a friend who interpreted them, and I really loved dreaming, and honestly, I haven't had maybe I can count on one hand in the last 20 years the number of dreams I've had.
Wow. And do you
Yeah.
Oh,
think you're not dreaming at all, or is it that you just aren't being able to recall
you
them
don't
like you
remember
used
them.
to?
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know. I really
That's
don't know,
super
and I don't know how you
interesting.
know, you know?
I don't
But
either.
yeah, I'm always so grateful when I get one. Like, I had a dream not too long ago, which I was like, "Oh, I gotta write this down because surely this means something." Um, yeah, but I really missed that a
So
lot.
they something I think they said in the book or in the podcast was that a lot of your dreams that are more or easier to remember dreams happen late in the whole sleep cycle. So like early in the morning basically. Or
Mm,
maybe you wake up and then you just go right back to sleep and that's when you have these
mm.
really involved dreams. And I know that's true for me. And I do dream quite a bit. Um and yes, some of them are crazy. But a lot of
Right?
them are like fun. I don't know how to
Yeah,
describe
they're
them,
fun,
but
I miss them.
it's like
I'm
an
like, I
adventure.
really miss them.
Well, and then this is gonna go way off the rails, but we're not gonna go there, but I'm just gonna throw it in there because then there's the whole, like, spiritual side where it's like, "Oh, you're on the astral."
Yep,
Like, and, you were in your body, and your body goes to sleep, but your brain and your spiritual side is out there doing stuff, and that's why it's so vivid. And
yeah,
sometimes, you have those dreams where you come back and you're like, it feels so real that
real.
you can barely believe it didn't happen.
Yeah. What about
And
you, Aim?
that's what they call astral dreaming.
Do you dream?
Um, I do, yeah. Um, I actually just had a dream last night about being at a barn with horses, yeah.
Mm.
Now that we're talking about dreams. Yeah, I do, and I think I remember them sometimes. So, obviously, I sleep sometimes,
Right,
Yeah.
or I wouldn't be dreaming.
Well, and I
right?
think it's funny how dreams can, like, you might not even remember a dream. Like, when you first wake up, you're like, oh,
Mhm.
that dream was crazy. And then, like, 10 minutes later, it's gone. But
Mhm.
then, like, this
Yeah.
happened to me the other day. I had this kind of weird dream, and it was the only part I remember is this client came up to me, and it was like I was at work, and he looked behind me and he said, "Oh, does that metronome work?" And it's a metronome I have on the top of my piano at home. But in the dream, I was like, it's totally natural that he saw that metronome and was asking about it. So I didn't remember it until today. I was in the living room and I was just like cleaning some stuff and organizing. And I looked up and there's the metronome sitting on the piano. And I was like, oh my gosh, that dream. And I'm like, that
Yeah,
wasn't real. That
like,
thing is not
something
at the
clicks.
office or whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
Something clicks and you just like recall it suddenly. It's so strange. It's that part, and I know he's a scientist and he's all about like it's got to be data and measurable, and he doesn't believe in a lot of Freud stuff, which Freud, yeah, I don't know if I do either. But the thing that I always wonder is like we don't know. Like
We don't know.
we don't know what's happening when we dream. We really don't. They have not figured that out yet.
Yeah. We definitely need to do a whole podcast on
On
dreams.
dreams. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, and in
Oh.
the yogic world and the yogic sense, like the ancient yogis, which yoga was not a physical entity back then. It was more of a way of life. It
Mm,
was more spiritual, and they were trying to achieve their higher self, basically. That's, really a bad way of explaining it, but um I'm reading another book about this yogi. It's called Autobiography of a Yogi, and they talk about how these famous yogis from history, which were like 2,000-year-old people, would appear and their bodies would just be like they were sleeping, but they would appear to people in other locations, like, like traveling
mm,
astrally. And there's like all kinds of written text about it, and I mean, if you think about it, it was like even like things that were considered miracles or things that Jesus
mm.
did, and it's really interesting. And to me it's like, okay, so when you're sleeping, it's kind of like the state that these people got themselves into, like with
Into.
deep meditation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sleep is
Mm.
so mysterious to me, and
Uh,
dreaming.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know we're gonna wrap up here soon, but just in the first part of the book, and he said, the book is Why Do We Sleep, right? Is that the name of the book?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why
Yeah,
we sleep.
yeah,
Why we
Why We
sleep.
Sleep. and he says, "It really should have been, 'Why do we wake up?'" And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, wow, that was a little mind-bendy." So, I love those mind-bendy things. I'm like, "How
Yeah.
cool is that? Why" sleep because sleep is so good for us and just as a species and survival, like, why really, it's not the question of why do we sleep, it's the question of why do we wake up. So, I'm super excited to finish this. I'm probably a little more than halfway through now, and I may have to listen to it again because it's just so chock full of so many things. So, I'm
Yeah.
excited
Yeah.
to do part 2 of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
Yeah.
too.
So we're gonna,
Yeah.
I think, have this, and then we're gonna have a little break in between with a different episode, and then we'll have part two coming up in a few weeks. So
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
stay
so
tuned
stay
for that.
tuned. I think we're gonna do something real
Yeah.
fun in the middle, and
Yeah,
that'll give us time to all
Yeah.
finish the book because it is a long book. It's pretty
yeah,
long,
Yeah.
but
So,
it's really easy to read and listen to. I'm listening to it as well.
me too,
yeah.
yeah. Well, ladies,
All
Well,
right.
who's gonna sleep well tonight?
I'm gonna really
I hope
try,
so. Yeah.
really try. Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, do a
All
sleep
right.
meditation before you go to
I
bed.
will,
Yeah.
I will. Thank you for
It is.
sending me some, Lara. You
You're
Yeah.
sent me a
welcome.
few. That was good.
Yeah, some of my favorites, and then I can do it myself, so I put a few out there too.
I'm gonna
Nice.
keep working on it. I'll report back.
Yes,
All
please
right.
do. And
Yeah.
don't drink anything before you go to bed.
Trust.
Ah,
Well, any last thoughts?
no, look forward to the second part of this.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the next episode will be a lot of fun. We're gonna
Yeah.
just have fun with the next episode. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Speaking of things sleeping with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
Yay.
so, in the meantime, send us any stories, any questions, anything. We love to hear from you guys.
Yeah. Just
Mm,
shoot us an email. Send us a message on social
Yeah.
media too.
Follow us on
We
social.
can check that. Yeah.
Yeah.
The email is 3monkeyswellness@gmail.com, and 3 is spelled out.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, ladies. On that note, it's almost my bedtime when
I
we're
was just saying
recording
Amy's
this.
about ready to go to bed. Thanks for
Off
listening.
we
Yeah.
go.
Thank
Sweet
you
Ooh,
dreams.
guys.
Sweet
Yeah.
dreams,
sweet
everybody.
dreams. Peace
Good
Bye.
out.
night. Peace out.
Peace out.